So welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Thanks for joining us today in our Civil Engineering Community webinar series. Today we're going to be going over what's new in InfraWorks and in Civil 3D 2020 for our global launch. And we're happy to have with us again Nick Zeben and Tim Yaris, who are going to be presenting. As a reminder for a couple of these things, this webcast series is now monthly. Again, the goal of this is to bring the users and the producers of the software together to kind of show what's new, some of the features that we're excited about, and to get some feedback from you as well. One additional thing to note is that any of these upcoming webinars, you can follow us on Facebook, and that's at Autodesk Civil 3D, and that will notify you of any kind of upcoming webinars that are going to be happening. I'd like to direct everyone as well to our Autodesk Civil Community site, and that's civil-community.autodesk.com. That is where you're going to see the postings for any of these recordings. Oftentimes we get the question on if this broadcast will be posted somewhere. It will, and this is where you can find it. And in addition, there's a lot of other information that you will find. Also want to direct your attention to our Autodesk AEC webinar portal, and this is where all the upcoming webinars and or past webinars also can be posted and will be posted, and the site is there at the top of the screen. And so if you're looking for any sort of upcoming content or previous content that we have provided, that's specifically for this webinar portal. One other item of note, want to encourage anyone and everyone to submit your submissions for the AEC Excellence Awards. That is coming up. The deadline for that is June 4th. So if you have a project that is of particular note, whether it's in infrastructure, construction, building, whatever it might be, something that is noteworthy, please go to that site, submit your project. They always make a very big to-do of this, and it's exciting to see a lot of the different projects that have been submitted over the years. And they will announce the winners in October, and they'll be able to participate and present at AU in November, at AU Autodesk University. Just a matter of disclaimer, any items that are shown as futures are not a guarantee that they'll make it into the product. I think everything here is showing as is currently available. And Tim and Nick can correct me on that if I'm wrong. We want to encourage everyone to ask questions, as was covered before. You do have the ability in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar. You can submit questions, and we have a panel of folks who are available to answer those questions as they come in. We will also be able to ask Tim and Nick toward the end of the presentation any kind of questions as well. Any questions that we're not able to get through, these are the site at the bottom. These are the Autodesk forums. If you have a particular question that is pressing that we weren't able to cover, please go to these sites for either InfraWorks or for Civil 3D. With that, we have a handful of poll questions. We want to start off with 3 right now, but there's going to be another one toward the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and start that first poll question. These have to do with particular products you're using. We'll let that run for a few more seconds. Okay, great. Thanks everybody for voting on that. Let's go on to the next poll question then. All right, just want to see which version that you're using. If it's those of you who have been able to get up to the 2020 version, or those of you who are using some older versions, interested to see what you currently have available to you. And we'll let that run for another 5 seconds or so. Okay, great. Looks like the majority of you are using 2019. And then the last question we have is your particular discipline, area of interest, work area that you're involved with. And we'll let that run for another 5 or so seconds. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. With that, I am now going to turn the presentation over to Nick, and you'll have a chance to present on InfraWorks. So, Nick, you're off.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. You guys see my screen okay?
Yep, looks good.
All right. Before I dig in, I did want to point out one more thing. If you do submit an excellence award and happen to win, you also will get to meet Ben Wardell in person, which is a pretty big deal.
And Nick Zeben too. Don't forget that. That's pretty good stuff.
So thanks everybody for coming out today. Going to spend a few minutes looking at the highlights for the new InfraWorks release. A lot of, I think, continuing themes in this release, things that people have asked for or are continuations of work that we already started in some of the prior releases. So the highlights are here up on screen. The first four, I'm not going to talk about in detail because I've actually got some videos, but the last one I want to spend a couple minutes on. So the traffic simulation has had a slight change to it. So previously, if you wanted to do traffic simulation, we did that on a cloud service. With 2020, that cloud service is no longer being used to do the simulation. We're actually doing it right at your desktop on your computer. So that means a couple things. One is that it doesn't cost cloud credits anymore to do traffic simulations. And it also means that you don't have to wait for the simulation to be sent to the cloud and sent back. So you'll see that change in 2020. We also are going to make some changes later in the year with the next release. We're actually going to shut down the existing traffic simulation service. So you'll need to be on 2020 or greater to continue using traffic simulation after we release the next InfraWorks, which will be sometime in the fall. So with that, let's dive into some of our new features. So first up is, again, a continuation of the work we've been doing around the ArcGIS connector. So with this release, we have now enabled SaveBack. So on the ESRI side, you need to enable editing for a particular layer. And here we see the layer in ArcGIS Online. And then here's the same data that's been brought in via the ArcGIS connector. So I can adjust and alter that data in the InfraWorks model. So here, John, who was nice enough to make these videos for us, Ben's counterpart, is editing a pipe network and a catch basin or a manhole and repositioning them in the InfraWorks space. So he can do that in the contextual model of InfraWorks. And then if he brings up data sources and finds that data source from ArcGIS Online, he simply right clicks and save back. So as long as you have permissions on the ArcGIS side, you can update that data. And here we'll just refresh it on ArcGIS Online and you can see the change to that data. So that's the first one. And as I said, that's a continuation of building out more and more capability in ArcGIS Online. Next up is another enhancement around extended schema. So we talked a little bit, we started the extended schema work in the 19.3 release. So we can extend the attribution of any asset in the drawing or in the model. And so here you can see we're adding additional properties to and feature classes to the application. And anything that I add here, I can then add those properties to those assets. Once I've added the extended schema, you can see those new asset types are there. And now with the 2020 release, we are allowing those to transfer across with things like not LandXML, with things like our IMX exports. So we can move those feature classes around from file to file. We don't have to set them up in each individual file. So we continue to make those enhancements as well to let you build broader BIM data sets inside the platform. Next up is spreadsheet-based edits for structures. So within InfraWorks, obviously, we've been investing in the bridge and structure modeling capabilities, and we have a new send to spreadsheet command. So if you're working on a more complex structure, and maybe need to make some bulk edits, I multi-span, I can now make changes to all of the parameters in an Excel spreadsheet format, and then send that back. So we've got some customers that are working on some bigger projects with the structures capabilities, and this has been really key for them as they decide to change things rather than having to select multiple components and update all of those. They simply update them in the spreadsheet and get all of those edits taking place. So a real time saver on the sort of the bulk editing or bulk change when you have major design changes. This one straight from the Idea Station. So cut and fill display for roads. So previously we could control material and we could split our grading out and add different materials wherever we split the grading. Now we've added an additional material type so that each cut and fill can have a different material being applied. So if you select the grading as you see on screen, we simply apply a material. And the material, if you want a standard red-green display, you could do that, or you can apply a material as well. So one of our leading items that was came from all of you on the Idea Station there. So with that covers the highlights for InfraWorks. So I am going to hand off to Tim, and he is going to talk about Civil 3D. Once I find him in the list. Tim, are you there?
I'm here.
Welcome.
Let me grab my. Okay. Someone could please let me know if you can see my screen, and whether it's which screen you're seeing. I guess would be.
We are seeing the non-present. We're seeing your PowerPoint, Tim.
Yeah, that's not the one that I want. I want to try the other one. How's that one?
That's the one. That's what we want to see. Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. All right. So again, thanks, Nick, for kicking things off, and I really appreciate everyone joining us today for this webinar. So I want to talk today about some of the stuff that's new in Civil 3D 2020. So complements a lot of the stuff that Nick just introduced in InfraWorks. And basically, I'm just going to dig into one of the slides here that's going to show you kind of an overview of some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about here. So a lot of the things that we've done for Civil 3D 2020 have been a number of enhancements to some existing functionality, and we've also made a new feature available that is fairly significant and we think is really going to help a lot of people out just become more efficient and get a great deal more out of their Civil 3D models. And so that's Dynamo for Civil 3D. So the majority of what I'm going to talk about are the first 3 items on this list here. So Dynamo for Civil 3D, some enhancements that we've made to storm and sanitary analysis, and then also some enhancements that we've made to the Analyze Gravity Network tool. I'll touch really quickly on some of the just miscellaneous improvements as well, and just also a note that we've concentrated, as we've been doing our best to do so for the last several releases of Civil 3D, on just general quality and stability of the product. And so we're happy with the progress that we've made on that front, as well as with all of the enhancements that we've made for 2020. So I'm just going to jump right in. And the first thing, again, that I'm going to talk about here, I'm just going to get into the good stuff here, is Dynamo for Civil 3D. So Dynamo for Civil 3D is a visual programming tool that it basically enables you to process simple or complex repetitive actions quickly and efficiently. So as you see here, we have nodes that are available to support both Civil 3D and native AutoCAD objects in Dynamo for Civil 3D. So these nodes let you interact with the drawing objects either from within Dynamo itself or from within the CAD environment. So you can use Dynamo to read data from spreadsheets to process operations on the drawing objects. And then once those objects have been processed by that first spreadsheet, they can then react automatically to changes that you make within the spreadsheet data. So really powerful options there. Dynamo for Civil 3D gives users like yourselves the ability to visually script behavior and define custom pieces of logic. It's a simple interface, and so Dynamo for Civil 3D is really easily accessible to both non-programmers and programmers alike. So this tool really lets engineers and designers, and not just programmers, program. So Dynamo Civil 3D just overall provides enhanced efficiency for design workflows where repetitive and time-consuming tasks are a challenge. So we're really excited about what we've done with Dynamo for Civil 3D in the 2020 release, and we're really looking forward to what some of our customers are going to be able to do with it when they get their hands on it. Examples being, as we've been developing Dynamo for Civil 3D, we've been working very closely with customers such as yourselves to ensure that the end result will be a powerful yet accessible tool that would save you as much time as possible. And so customers like Wouter Bollens here at TookRail have confirmed that Dynamo for Civil 3D on 2020 is going to change the way that they interact with Civil 3D. So again, get your hands on Dynamo for Civil 3D with the 2020 release. We're really looking forward to your feedback and just really looking forward to just seeing what it is that you can do with it. We've got some ideas, but our customers are always pretty amazing at surprising us with the level of creativity that they can go with just the tools that we give them. So Dynamo for Civil 3D is the biggest thing that we have out for 2020. So we're really excited about that. So the next one I'm going to talk about is storm and sanitary analysis. So Autodesk Storm and Sanitary Analysis, it's been updated with a number of new features for the 2020 release. First, when you enter an analysis for multiple storm events, you can now enter tailwater conditions separately per storm event. And even before you run that multiple storm event analysis, you can specify an outfall condition for each one of those storm events. So in SSA 2020, you won't have to run separate analyses to accommodate different conditions for different storm events. You can set them all at once and just run with it. Next thing we have is when you're using dimensionless hydrographs, you can set the peak rate factor on a per subbasin basis. So you can enter the peak rate factor for each subbasin at the top of the dialog box, as you see here, or you can use this table at the bottom to quickly set all the subbasins at once. You can also speed things up by copying the peak rate factor from one subbasin to another. And then finally, in cases where, I'm just gonna let this video catch up with me here. Right, there we go. So in cases where underground detention is necessary, we've added updated and new storage chambers from both ADS and Caltech. So these new storage chambers are available just from within SSA, right from where you select a storage curve using the existing workflow in SSA. So again, just enhancement to the existing SSA tool to just make it a bit more powerful to users like yourselves. Next thing I'll touch on is some of the enhancements we've made to the Analyze Gravity Network tool. So we've updated this workflow to analyze a gravity pipe network and apply the results to a pipe network while you're still interacting with the model. So as you see here, you can now add hydraulic properties such as great dimensions and known flow to each drainage structure that's going to participate in the network. These properties will be saved and used during the analysis calculations. And then big thing here is the wizard for the Analyze Gravity Network command has been replaced with a modeless dialog box. And this dialog box lets you interact with the drawing while you're still making decisions about how you want to run the analysis. And again, you can run any of the 3 analysis types available, which are pipe sizing, energy and hydraulic grade lines, or inlet analysis. And then before you run the analysis, you can review and resolve issues that are apparent in an easy-to-use tabular format. And then once the analysis has been run, you can examine the results either in a spreadsheet, or you can also visualize the hydraulic and energy grade lines on a profile view. So again, just making the, we've had a lot of feedback on the previous generation of the Analyze Gravity Network workflow, and we did a great deal of work on this new tool just to pay attention to your feedback and make it more efficient and easier to use in your workflows. So last things I'll touch on very quickly are just a whole bunch of other enhancements that we're confident are going to make a big difference in your workflows. So things such as you may have noticed in the Dynamo for Civil 3D video and even in the previous Analyze Gravity Network video that there's the user interface for Civil 3D 2020 has been updated a bit. And so across a number of the Autodesk products in 2020, you'll see a new dark blue theme across the ribbon and a bunch of the other user interface elements. And so we've adopted that theme as well. And we've also made some changes to the icons that are on the main Civil 3D ribbon to scale better for high resolution displays. So those are becoming a lot more prevalent, and we just wanted to take the first step into making Civil 3D a lot more compliant for those higher resolution displays. We've also done a number of different enhancements to just better support our Rail customers. So things such as being able to run a chord-based alignment report on a Rail alignment, have alignment interoperability with InfraWorks, work much more seamlessly and have the geometry transfer between the two products much more seamlessly. And then also we've added some more design standards for Rail Platform Edge for our customers in China. Some other things that we've done in Civil 3D 2020 have been things such as we've updated the survey database format from SQL Server Compact to SQLite. This is just a bit more of a secure and robust format for survey databases. And just a note on the survey database update, we've also included a utility that will allow you to convert any existing survey databases from the previous format to the new format. And so, yes, you can use your existing survey databases with Civil 3D 2020, but they will need to be upgraded using this utility that we're providing. And then the last thing I'll touch on just is in the overall effort that I mentioned to just improve quality and just make our product a bit just more stable and more robust for our customers, is we made some significant enhancements to the export Civil 3D drawing command. And so our main focus on updating this command was to just ensure a bit more visual fidelity between the existing Civil 3D model that you export. We wanted that visual fidelity to really be there when you export out to either DGN format or to plain AutoCAD DWG format. So we've done a lot of work there. The command itself is a great deal more stable than it had been in the past, and the visual fidelity is a much greater degree than it had been in previous versions of Civil 3D. So very good stuff there. And that's the majority of what I wanted to talk about for Civil 3D 2020. Ben, I'm not sure if we have a lot of questions that we might be able to touch on, or?
Well, we've had a couple different questions, some in regards to pipe networks and in regards to some of the fixes there. Do you know, Tim, and maybe this is something for Nigel, who may be on as well. It's the question regarding Dynamo and the pipe networking. Is that available yet? And I'm not sure of in that regard.
You mean Dynamo support for pipe networks in Civil 3D?
Yeah.
I don't believe we have pipe network node support in Dynamo for Civil 3D 2020.
Okay.
Nigel can keep me honest about that.
Yes, at the moment we don't have any exact nodes, but we do have Python support, which gives you access. So if you know the API, you can write some Python scripts to access it.
Okay. And some of the questions were in regards to with the Dynamo scripts and some of those inputs that go into Dynamo for Civil 3D. They asked, is that something that can be taken into InfraWorks? And in the case of the example that was shown, it was a rail example where a number of features, number of blocks were placed along a corridor alignment. That is possible. Just exporting those as an FBX, that was actually done through Navisworks, but done as an FBX, and that can be brought into InfraWorks as well, and it shows very, very well. So. Okay, a couple of questions, and I think a lot of this is, so one of the questions, will Dynamo work with corridors? Yes, it does. Dynamo is compatible with alignments, with corridors. There are a number of nodes in Civil 3D and AutoCAD that are currently available with that, and there will be even more functionality in future versions with Dynamo, but right now, yes, it's fully compatible with corridors, so things can be placed in their proper location relative to a corridor alignment, for example. So looks like we have a number of questions about Dynamo. Dynamo, does it work with AutoCAD objects as well? Tim, I'll ask the question, you can answer. I don't want to hog everything up here. So.
No, Ben, you're far more of a Dynamo expert than a lot of the other people on the call here. But to a degree, yes, we have built in a number of nodes that will support AutoCAD objects within Dynamo for Civil 3D 2020. I'm not sure if Nigel might be able to comment on how the degree to which AutoCAD objects are supported.
So we support lines, polylines, 3D polylines, meshes, and solids and text entities in AutoCAD, both reading the geometry into Dynamo and updating it or creating the objects. Back to Tim. Or Ben, sorry.
Well, before we get too into the questions, I know that we have people are going to start asking all sorts of questions, and we, Tim and Nick were able to get through the presentation relatively quickly, and so it looks like we will have some time to go through that. But we did have one more poll question that we wanted to ask, and so let's go ahead and launch that now. And this is just a question on if you're interested in having someone follow up with you. And so we'll let that run for 20 or 30 seconds, and then we'll get back into the question and answers. So we'll let that run for another 5 or 10 seconds. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Looks like everybody's pretty good where they're at, but there's a handful of people who are interested. So we'll go ahead and end the poll there. So thanks to those who participated. Nigel and Tim, one of the questions we've gotten quite a bit on in regards to Dynamo is asking the question if there will be a location where some of these Dynamo scripts can be shared in a community site or something along those lines, to where people can go and access scripts that people have created that are either very common or very useful in those regards.
So yes, in Dynamo, you can publish your scripts or your nodes to share to the community, and anyone once published can search for that in the editor itself or online to find the scripts.
Okay. And then another question was where's the best place to start learning Dynamo? Nigel, I don't know if you have a great answer for that. The one thought that I would add to that question is, as far as starting to learn Dynamo, is we will be producing quite a bit of content, how-to videos, and just kind of walking you through certain procedures, more common workflow tasks, just showing you how to do that. Also with Dynamo, when you Dynamo is a separate install, but Nigel, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but there are a number of samples that are provided with the Dynamo for Civil 3D out of the box that people can kind of play with and look at and see how their functionality works, as well as the accompanying corridor or DWG files that go along with that. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
So there are 9 worked examples, each containing a drawing and 1 or more scripts that show workflows like renaming things, changing the layer of items, to more complex things like building retaining walls along a corridor based on the corridor geometry, or labeling the slopes or elevations along the corridor. And finally, probably the most complex one is an example using Python that lets you export the property set data and property set definitions from a drawing, edit it in Excel, and then re-import them. But for learning it, the Dynamo, the help file has a direct link to the Dynamo website that is an open source website, and there is a very large set of documentation and a very active and helpful community on Dynamo. I would recommend anyone who's starting to use Dynamo to read the Dynamo Primer documentation on that website.
Very good. And then one of the questions was, what if someone is going to learn a particular, whether it's Python or C++, or the Dynamo is compatible with Python. So if you're going to learn anything, or if there's somebody who knows some of these programming languages already, Python is compatible, is the way to go when it comes to Dynamo. Question came up is, and this is kind of futures, but will Dynamo be operable with InfraWorks at any? Is that on the horizon? What do we know there?
I don't think we can really comment on that at this point in time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Don't know at this point. Sorry, guys.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let's look through a couple more of these. So the question is showing the Dynamo, the retaining wall with Dynamo right now. A little bit more Dynamo. Tim, do you have Dynamo up that you could present or show some of that? Or would you be comfortable doing that?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. No, unfortunately, I don't have it up and running right now.
Okay.
Maybe Nigel does, or Ben for that matter.
I don't either. Sorry, I've just uninstalled it to install a beta.
Okay, I can, give me just a moment. I can bring it up and I'll see what I can do here. Appreciate the vote of confidence from everybody saying no one will judge here, but so I can, once I get this up, Tim, I will go ahead and change to myself if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, everyone, this is a live demonstration, so buckle in and be prepared for crashes. Isn't that how it goes? Okay, I've just got a blank drawing here, and in Dynamo, I'm gonna launch the Dynamo executable. It is a separate install, and I wanna just emphasize that again. Dynamo for Civil 3D, you'll install it separately, but it does come with the AC collection. And so you'll have these additional buttons that will come up. When you launch the Dynamo for Civil, you'll have this will come up. This is the Dynamo platform, and these are the samples that that Nigel talked about. So there's a number of different case files, and if I click down here and say Show Samples in Folder, I'll have Windows Explorer come up, and there's a couple of different case studies. And so if I open up case 1, and this is adding text and circle along a corridor feature line, I believe the question was in regards to number 2, and that's counterfort wall. So I can actually open that file right there. And let me move this off to the side so everyone can kind of see what it is that we've got. We've just got a simple corridor right here, and I'll kind of rotate this just a bit. Everyone can see, you can see my screen, okay? Tim, is that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I want to rotate this just a bit so you can kind of see this in more of an isometric view, so we can kind of see exactly what's going on here. So this is just a corridor that's run, real simple assembly, and we've got walls on each side. Apologize for that. Okay, so let's just kind of get it in an isometric view right there. So again, real simple corridor, walls on each side, roadway in the middle. Okay, so what we'll do, we need to have the file open first, but once we've got the file open, we can go down to this, and it's called Corridor Counterfort Wall. We'll open this up. And we can take a look at the script itself. And so what's nice about all of these scripts that have been presented up front is that there is a way you can group all these nodes together. And again, as we look at this, AutoCAD has a number of different functional nodes that are available. Civil 3D has the same type, Civil 3D objects or selection. And then right in here in corridor, somebody asked about corridors, baselines, regions, all of those things we can sort of populate. But this is, again, straight out of the box. So if we look at this, it's taking the current document, it's finding the corridor. From that corridor, it's taking the first baseline, and what it's doing, it's taking the begin and end station, and it's extracting the points along the corridor. So retaining wall hinge and retaining wall back are the points that it's going to draw a line between. And the rest of this is just more for georeferencing, for placing the objects in the coordinate system. What this is doing, this is drawing the shape itself. And so it's taking those points that it found, the retaining wall, the top of the retaining wall and the bottom of the retaining wall, and it's on the left side and on the right side, so that a negative value in a code block generally means it's drawing to the left. A positive value means it's drawing to the right. And what it's doing is in the X direction, it's drawing from the right hinge, from the top of the wall, it's drawing out a foot, and from the bottom of the wall, it's drawing out 3 feet. And the rest of this is just basically connecting the dots. That's what this whole portion right here, the retaining wall shape, is just kind of connecting the dots. And in the counterfort wall itself, we're going through, and actually, let me back up just a second here, because we will specify how frequently we want to place these counterfort walls. And those of you not familiar with a counterfort wall, it's basically just a triangular shaped wall to a retaining wall to sort of add structural stability to it. And so we're starting at the beginning station and we're progressing every 20 feet up the line to the end of the alignment there. And in the process of placing this, we will also provide a thickness, and then it will all be drawn in on layer 0. That's sort of the guts of this operation. When I hit run, keep in mind the first time that you run this, it can take anywhere from, depending on the complexity of your script, it can take 30 seconds to a couple of minutes. If you're in a georeference location working in state plane coordinates, or anything that's got fairly large northing and easting values, it will take a little bit more time, because again, when it's georeferencing those points, it is processing those numbers. Now in the nodes itself, once this is run, in the nodes themselves, I don't know if anybody noticed, but at the bottom of the scripts themselves, of these nodes, you would see a little thing that says auto. When I hover over that and click on that, all the values that were currently presented in this right here would show up as null. When I zoom into these now, it'll actually populate a value, and I can see the corridor feature lines, the number of times that it found those points and placed items was, let's go back to that number, 676 times. So these nodes will provide you some input, and if you have an error in your script or whatever is wrong, it will highlight in yellow and it will explain what it is that it did. The cool thing that I like about Dynamo as well is once it's processed this, it actually shows you what it's drawn in the Dynamo window. And I can pan over to this, and let me do this carefully because this thing moves, is very, very touchy. But we can kind of take a look and see what it's done. And it's drawn these shapes in our counterfort wall example. And when I move this out of the way, now I can take a look at my corridor and see that all these items have been drawn in here. And if I change the way that this is presented in a concept view, you can see these items that have been placed. Again, as Tim pointed out, in Dynamo for Civil 3D, one thing that's really nice about it is repetitive tasks that would take a long time to do this by hand, they can be done very quickly. Because what this is doing is this is drawing down, and you'll notice each one of these shapes, they differ in size, but that's due to the scripting of the script itself, the programming of the script. If I were to do this by hand, this would take forever, but Dynamo can process this in about a minute and a half. And so as we pan out, we can kind of see some of these things. I'll show the other example as well. Again, I don't want to get myself into too much trouble here, but this is the rail example that was done with the video itself as well. And I'm gonna take just a minute to go into isometric view as well. One thing we did with this particular model was we placed elements along a corridor. And we placed things like ties, the rails, and actually the OCS poles as well. And so click on that and give this just a second here. So I don't know if there were other, I apologize, I looked away from any sort of questions that we had, but I don't know if there's more questions in regards to any of these things, but let me zoom in here. And so this was, again, a rail corridor and doing something similar to where we have a block. And so in this block is just a standard rail tie. And with this, I was able to run 4 different procedures, and this is with the help of the whole Autodesk team. So the Dynamo staff was great about helping kind of put some of these things together, and they can be very helpful, and we'll get a lot of these scripts out on the community side as well. But just placing elements along a corridor, we were able to do that. We were able to use a CSV, an Excel spreadsheet, so to speak, where we had placed and gone through and placed specifying a station and an offset and a type of block that we use to place these OCS poles. So these are individual blocks within the file itself. And in the CSV file, we showed the station location where we wanted those to be placed, as well as the offset from the center alignment as well. So it's something where you can place blocks if you know the exact features that are going to be placed along, or if you are going to use this with a CSV file, which is really common for a lot of different sets. If you're using, a sign inventory, if you're working on a rail project and you've got system elements to be placed in there, if you've got structural elements that the station and offsets for that, all of this stuff can be placed using a CSV file, using an external file, and it reads it very well, and everything is dialed in specifically. This last little bit where we showed the overhead catenary lines, Paulo Serra, one of our Dynamo guys, put that script together, and it's quite a bit more complex. In that video that Tim showed, you kind of see it. There's quite a few different wires that were connecting it, but all that was doing was taking the geometry of the block and connecting the lines, and then drawing each one of these in a parabolic shape. And so a lot of very powerful tools, a lot of powerful elements that are available straight out of the box that can help with these workflows that you may be working on. So with that, Tim, I'll turn it back over to you. So again, I apologize for stealing the floor for the time. So
I'm happy that you did, Ben. Yeah. Props to Ben. Again, he mentioned that he kept referring back to that video that I was showing during my presentation. And as Ben mentioned, he and the Dynamo team and a number of other folks kind of contributed to that. So yeah, Ben and team did some outstanding work on the videos for.
So I see a lot of good questions coming in. Can we lay out parking stalls with that? Yeah, absolutely. That's something that can be drawn in. Nigel and his team developed a handful of things where they can label slopes. They can label points, Kogo points that are necessary, for if you wanted to show in sort of a reporting feature, you could create Kogo points that are all on the daylight of a particular corridor. There's really, here's the trouble with Dynamo. It's kind of like holding a Swiss Army knife. And some of the times it's like, well, how do I open the first blade? It is tremendously powerful, and it will help with a number of these different workflows that people may be working on. And it can help with handicap ramps. It can help, with placement of features, whatever it is. So yeah, there's a number of just the capability really is just kind of limited by the creativity of the user, in my opinion. So Nigel, I don't know if you want to add any more on that as far as the functionalities. Nigel, can you speak to some of the different samples that are provided with Dynamo out of the box?
So out of the box, we have the labeling of the elevations, we have the counterfall walls, we have the slope symbols, we have a very simple script that selects an object and sets its layer, just to show that we can manipulate AutoCAD objects directly. We have the ability to export all the subassembly and baseline parameters from a corridor into an Excel spreadsheet, and then re-import them, updating the ones that are allowed to be edited. We have the elevation labeling, I think I've done, and we have the ability with a script to extract all the property set data definitions, so you can extract them from a drawing and then import them into another drawing, and it places them into a JSON file format. And we have a second smaller version of that script that extracts all the property set data out of a drawing, lets you edit it, and then re-import and update the property set data in the same drawing. And I know I've missed one, but I can't remember what it is.
Okay, very good. We do have a number of questions regarding pipelines, and boy, there's just a number more than we can show. Let me go back one more time, Tim. I'm going to take over control again. but I want to show the again the futures for the forum, as far as where people can, if they have questions. So let me show. Sorry about that, everyone. Again, so any questions that we're not able to get to, and I know, and again, I do apologize, there's just more questions than we've got time to answer them, but any questions that are really pressing, here are the sites that you can use either for InfraWorks or for Civil 3D. So any kind of questions regarding futures or even suggestions. I know a lot of the work the development team does really comes from this forum, from these forums. Tim, I don't know if you want to add anything into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the forums are an outstanding place to get product advice, just from not only just from Autodesk, but also from the community itself. So we've got a bunch of outstanding people out there that are very generous with their time and their answers. So yeah, by all means, please use that as a tool to get information that you need regarding Civil 3D, InfraWorks, or just civil engineering workflows in general, for that matter.
Okay. One of the questions, Nigel, that came in is using with Python scripts. They want to know, can Dynamo be run without having an Autodesk program open like Civil 3D? There is a Dynamo platform that is a standalone, correct?
There is a older version of Dynamo does run in a standalone mode, yes. The current year's implementations are either in Revit or in Civil, and we don't support the Dynamo for Civil being run standalone.
Okay. And then we had a question to post these. I'm going to post these forum sites in the chat window. I'll send it to everyone as well. So in the questions, I'll send that to both of those links. So you can have those as a all right. Okay, let me go through a few more of these questions. We do have just a few more minutes. And again, thank you to everybody who has participated in this webinar, who's submitted questions, who's interested in learning more about this. Really do appreciate your time. So, okay, and then so I'll go back to, I had another question regarding the civil community. Again, this webinar will be posted in the following locations. So let me get that for everybody. So that's in the civil community site. This is where you'll see, under the news section is where you'll see any sort of upcoming webinars that are scheduled to come out, as well as any applicable information for the civil community. And then as you scroll down through the bottom of this particular site, you'll see the webinars are posted as well. In addition, the AEC webinar portal, all the old webinars are posted here, as well as upcoming webinars. So if you haven't already, bookmark this page, check it. We have the monthly webinars are posted here. As soon as we have the information about who will be presenting and what they'll be presenting, we post this information here. So, all right. Guys, a lot of good questions all the way around. For those who weren't able to get your questions, do apologize. Reach out to us, particularly on that forums page, and I'll leave it on that. Should you have any questions that are more pressing, if you have our contacts individually, you're welcome to reach out to us as well. We'll help out as much as we can. So. Tim, anything else you want to leave with, or?
I don't have anything specific. Just thanks a million, Ben, for coordinating this, and thanks to all the folks from Autodesk in the background that have been scrambling to answer questions, especially Nigel and John and Dave for keeping up with everything.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. This is, as always, these webinars are not an individual effort. They're they require a team of individuals to get these to you. So thank you to everybody who submitted questions. Thank you to everyone who answered questions, especially to our panel. Appreciate it, guys. With that, I think we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up for now. We hope to see you guys soon. Thanks everybody for participation, and have a great day. Appreciate it, guys.